Hi there, my name's Sean Longest. I'm the product lead for Conductor4SQL, and in today's video I'll be taking you through the distributed command feature for Conductor4SQL. As I've mentioned before, please be sure to watch these videos in full screen and at a good resolution so you're able to see everything that I'm doing. These videos do follow in sequence, so please be sure to watch them from the beginning. In the previous video we covered the distributed query feature, which allows you to query your entire SQL environment from one central point. Whatever information it is you might want, whether it's DBA type SQL statistics or database information, or even querying business or user data in real time from your SQL environment. That can be done through distributed query. Conductor will then consolidate all those results for you centrally, and you can easily search and share that information with your organization. Today, with distributed commands, we cover the full range of DML and DDL. So with this feature, you are able to actually take your SQL scripts, any metadata changes that you might want to implement into your SQL environment. For example, adding new tables, stored procedures, views, triggers, any of that. You can also maintain master data across your entire SQL environment. If you want to go check and update certain data values, you can do that through this feature as well. This feature also allows the auditing of your DML and your DDL. So when you send out your SQL scripts to your SQL environment or your SQL production environment, obviously they will be audited through this tool, and you'll be able to trace back whenever objects were created or deleted or anything like that in your SQL environment. This is quite a handy feature. However, in a later video we'll cover the full range of auditing, whereby we even audit your SQL Server environment through events that don't happen through our tool, whether they may be happening through other people in your SQL environment with Management Studio, command line SQL, SQL injection. You'll be able to audit and track those things as well, and this will be covered in a later video around the auditing feature. This is a very easy and reliable way of getting your SQL scripts deployed across very large SQL environments. You'll see in the demo, in the video I'm about to do, you can take your SQL scripts and get them out there to an extremely large SQL environment in real time. Once again, just to mention, Conductor4SQL is built on a guaranteed messaging system. So if you're working with a large SQL environment and you need to deploy scripts, and for some reason some of your instances of SQL are not available, perhaps there's network issues, or the SQL service isn't running, or the server is switched off, you don't have to worry with Conductor4SQL. We will keep retrying, and we'll guarantee that eventually your SQL work will get to your environment. Lastly, as with distributed query, you can schedule these commands. So as I showed in the last video, you can save your SQL scripts in Conductor4SQL, you can secure them if you want to, and then you can go to the Conductor4SQL scheduler and actually schedule your scripts when they need to happen. So for example, if you need to deploy metadata changes to your SQL environment and they need to go out on a Sunday night at midnight, you can schedule that in our tool. Or if there's repetitive DML or DDL scripts that you want to run across your SQL environment at any intervals, you can schedule them with our tool as well. So that's very handy and makes the DBA's life a lot easier. Right, so I'm going to jump now onto our demo environment. So to send your SQL scripts, what you need to do is from our user interface, which we've covered in earlier videos, you need to go to the central client control option on the left hand side menu. Once you're there, you should be familiar with this from the other videos. The main features here, as you can see with the buttons on the top, are the send command, send query, and send file. Send query we covered in the previous video, so I'm going to show you how to send a command. What I've got, if I switch to Management Studio, is a SQL script with various different DML and DDL statements. So I'm creating tables, I'm inserting data, I'm doing creation of views, and then I'm altering views, and I'm doing some drops. So I'm doing a nice full range of DML and DDL that you can see. What I'm going to do in Management Studio now is I'm going to connect to one of our client instances that we've already set up on Conductor4SQL, and you would have seen this in an earlier video, just to show you that the objects don't exist. So if I expand the Object Explorer, you'll see in this database of ours, under tables at the bottom, in our script, we're going to create tables called test table. You'll see they don't exist there. If I expand views, you'll see there are no views on this instance of SQL. Important thing to note, we obviously always recommend that, since this is a very technical tool for SQL guys and DBA guys, you must always write your scripts in Management Studio, test them there. Obviously, that's the preferred development environment for SQL, so nothing changes there. Please go ahead and develop them and test them in Management Studio. And then, as I covered in an earlier video, you may want to create a test group of instances so that before you push out a script like this to your production environment, you'd want to first push it out through Conductor4SQL to a limited number of instances, dev instances or QA instances, or maybe one production instance, just to make sure it works before you would send this to an entire large SQL environment. Important to note, please always use fully qualified names in your SQL scripts. So where applicable, always use database schema object name. The same goes for distributed query. Since Conductor4SQL speaks directly to our database that we create on each of your client instances of SQL that you want to control and administer, everything you send, all the SQL you send via Conductor will execute in the context of our database. So you always want to make sure you're using fully qualified names so that you're creating or querying objects, SQL objects, in the correct schemas and so forth. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch back to Conductor4SQL. Now I want to send a SQL script to my SQL environment. As I've shown in an earlier video, if I click on the menu option on the left for Central Client Overview, there are 5 instances of SQL you can see here that I'm controlling. But typically with our tool, you could have hundreds or thousands of instances of SQL. So you can see this is quite a powerful feature that you can use on large environments or complex environments. So I'm going to go back to the Central Client Control menu option. To send a SQL script, I'm going to click on the Send Command button on the top left there. As you've seen before, you now get the option to where do you want to send the SQL to. You can send it to all, which is every single instance of SQL that you've set up and configured Conductor4SQL to communicate with. You can send it to a group, which you could have defined previously, as I've shown you in an earlier video, or to some, which is just an ad hoc selection of instances of SQL. So I'm going to say I want to send it to all, and our little SQL editor opens up here. As you've seen from the previous video, what I've done is I've saved a whole bunch of SQL scripts previously that I commonly use. So I'm going to select our change script, and if I maximize this, you'll see this is the same SQL script that I showed you in Management Studio. So I'm creating tables, inserting, updating data, creating views, and so forth. So right, once you've done that, as you can see, I've entered as well some metadata around the script. So there's a name for the script, there's also a description for the script. I've defined security on the script. We highly recommend you use this metadata. When you want to then go back into the auditing side and see when things happen in your SQL environment, you can search on these names and descriptions as well, which makes it very easy to find certain things. So I'm going to hit submit, and in real time, you can see our little progress box is showing you that this query went to 5 instances of SQL, and I'm still waiting for one, and there you go, it's gone green. So all my instances of SQL have received that SQL change script and processed it successfully. The reason you see 6 different messages here is because there were go statements in the SQL script. Conductor4SQL is smart enough to know that we need to commit each one of your SQL statements in between the go statements in a transaction that might be required. So we actually intelligently split your script up behind the scenes into committable pieces of transactions. So I'm going to say close. What you'll see now is the audit trail. So as I showed you with query, you can see each of the SQL statements, and if I click on them, I get the detail audit at the bottom. So I can see each individual piece of SQL code. I can also see every single instance of SQL Server that I sent that SQL code to. And once again, this is fully searchable. So these little white boxes here are completely searchable if you want to find things quickly. For example, if I want to see anywhere that we did anything with a table called test table, I would just type that into the search box, and straight away you'll see all the pieces of SQL. Also, if you hover over those little boxes, you can see the exact piece of SQL that was executed. You can see all of those affect that test table. Or if on any given day you want to know what views did we create, you can just type in create view, and it'll filter and you'll see exactly when the views were created. And you can filter also by the other boxes, for example, date. So you can look at a certain day when things happen in your SQL environment. And this is very useful for a DBA or for any organization to have complete control and auditing of what's happening in the SQL environment, who's doing it and when they are doing it. So now to jump back to Management Studio, just to show you that it worked, if I refresh the table list on one of my client instances of SQL that I'm controlling with Conductor, you'll see at the bottom now I've got a few new tables, and if I refresh the views, you'll see there are views created. So that entire script has now been pushed out to my SQL environment. You can imagine the application for this if you're running a very large distributed geographically dispersed in SQL environment. For example, if you're running a point of sale system across all your retail outlets, or if you're running SQL across entire restaurant chains across the country, and you need to push out SQL changes to the SQL databases around the country, you can do this very easily through our tool. As shown before, under the administration section, under settings, on the top left there, once again, you can use the scheduler option there, you can see on the left, to come in here and actually schedule a command. So I could say I want to schedule a new command with a button on the top left there. Go ahead and select my SQL script that I've saved before. There you can see all my scripts that I've saved. I can choose the relevant script and I can schedule it to go out. So if there are frequent commands that you want to go out to your SQL environment, you can do that through Conductor for SQL as well, which should make your life a lot easier as a DBA. And that is the distributed command feature. It's really powerful, really great for any DBA that's got a very large SQL environment. And in the next video, I'll be covering file sending through Conductor for SQL. So thanks for watching.